What's going down, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. Soul Effect, shouting from the R&B Talk Show. This brother right here is a singer, songwriter, and a doctor. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna tell you, this brother resume speaks for itself. I'm talking about no other than Aric B. So ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the young man right here. And we're gonna talk about his history. Say a new project called Things Never Said. So let's talk about this album. So what was the timeline? Are you working on this project?
Yes. So thank you so much, first of all, for having me. We started the process of writing in June of last year, actually. And we went all the way through from June until about the end of December, writing, recording, mixing, mastering, kind of finalized the project around early January. And then we were able to kind of get a month out for like planning as far as like marketing is concerned. And we got it out by Valentine's Day, February this year.
Okay, yeah. So when the album was done, was you pleased with the project? Or were there certain songs you'd be like, man, I should have added on there? Or you know what? I'm just gonna wait till the next project, and I just go from there.
Well, yeah. So I did about 40 songs for the record. I was
Right.
in and out of the studio. I was recording. I was writing just like a bunch of songs. And usually my process is I'll take my Apple Music playlist and I'll create a playlist out of all of the records that I'm making, and I'll just start to kind of build out what I feel like an album feels like throughout that playlist. So I'll add stuff, take stuff away, see how it flows. Really structure the album. I really kind of like do like the A&R work for myself. And then by the time I get to something that I feel like is a satisfactory product and it's something that's cohesive and it makes sense, it's along with the theme and it goes with the cover art and all that stuff, then I've decided, okay, cool, this is the album, this is how we're going to do it. Because, see, I didn't get the title of the album until after the album was done. I knew where I was going and I knew what I wanted things to sound like, but I didn't necessarily know what to call it. So it was one of those processes where I was shopping around, seeing like what works, what fits, and then what will place here and well. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, well, how do we name this whole body of work and make it make sense?
Absolutely. Big shouts to Miss V, the PR from the R&B Talk Show. Big shouts to the Queen. Also, big shouts to Miss Carla as well. So
Yes.
we're gonna start off with the very first song, track number one called "Kiss."
Okay.
Yeah. So what's the backstory behind this record?
All right. So, long story short, when I started out professionally as a singer songwriter, I also started doing weddings and working in a corporate band. And as a result of singing at weddings and doing these receptions and stuff, you have to learn top 40 pop, but you have to learn it from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s on down to the current era, which meant I had to learn Prince and I had to specifically learn Kiss because that's a big song in our repertoire. When I perform Kiss, though, I perform it it's very, like R&B, soul and all that kind of stuff. It's very funky. It's very like Prince in a way. I don't do all the stuff that Prince was doing, but I'll, vocally, I'll, imitate what he sounds like or whatever. And so I realized I was like, dang, I can do that. And I was like, well, I kind of want to make a song that reminds me of that, but it's not exactly that. And then I heard this beat that sounded very much like Pharrell. I was just frying, I want you, babe. I heard a beat that sounded like that, and I was like, wait a minute, that's like early 2000s mixed with a little bit of Kiss. So I was like, let's see. So I started writing the song, and I was like, this is very kind of Prince-ish. And I was like, all right, cool, let's finish out the song. So that's how Kiss came about. And when I got to the end of it, I was like, yo, this feels crazy. I was like, I gotta keep this. Like, this has to go on the project. So that's how Kiss came about.
Right.
It's my imitation and my ode to the actual song by Prince and a little mix of Pharrell.
Yeah, I tell you, R.I.P. to the Purple One. I think he would love, this wave, pay homage to like songs that are iconic because it's one thing cover the song, but when you pay homage to it in your own way, it don't have to be a cover, that's saying a whole lot and stuff. I think he probably more pleased of paying homage than sound a cover. Prince probably like, no, you don't have to do all that, just put your own type of sound, my brother.
Exactly. Don't he gonna make sure don't be trying to steal my stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I am original. You do what you do. You do your own thing. Leave me alone.
Yeah, because I think that's what I forgot his name speech. Yeah, from Resident Development. He went through that one little word, Tennessee, and it just went left. So,
Yeah. It just it happens like that. You know, I come to a point in my songwriting and my development as an artist where I'm in the process, and I'm just gonna allow how things come to me. Let them just come as they come. Like if I had been, like, well, I don't want to sound like Prince, or I don't want to, just let the influences flow, and let what comes to you creatively come to you, because you never know what you can create as a result of it. Sometimes you'll be blocking yourself, trying to, stop yourself from what you think might sound like somebody or whatever. Just go with it and see where it goes.
Yeah, so I totally agree. Track number 2, Checks.
Checks. Well, so I wanted to write a song for for my little, like, the folks that would consider themselves a little bit like ratchet R&B. Like that, I needed a joint that was like just a little urban, little hood, the one that stick out from the rest of them, because I knew the project was going to be very R&B, but I was like, let me just get a hood song that just kind of feels whatever, just for you talk your shit a little bit. And so I connected with this rapper in Boston, because I'm based in Boston. There's a rapper here that's based in Boston. She's pretty well known and she's dope. And we connected. We were at the studio one time, just ran into each other. And I was like, yo, would you mind like hopping on this record? And she was like, yeah, let me hear it. I played it for her. She loved it. She was like, yo, I got a verse. I'm going to spit this. I didn't actually know if she was going to send it back. She did send it back. She killed the verse. I was like, this is perfect. I sent it off to get mixed and mastered, sent back. I was like, yeah, this goes. So Checks was number 2 because I wanted to throw off the ear just a little bit. So it's like Kiss is like, all right, standard R&B. Checks is like, okay, what is this? I'm getting a little bit of some, urban hip hop, might be a little Ye in there, some Ty Dolla $ign, a little bit of, some more urban artists that was a little different from what my usual sound is. So that's what Checks came about, and it worked out. So we had to put that on there. But everything else from Checks on, I was like, all right, everything else from Checks on, this is gonna be straight R&B.
All right, track number 3, Sir Do Better.
Sir Do Better. So there's a song on, mind you, I gotta preface this by saying the whole project is my early 2000s. It's like an ode to early 2000 music, which is my favorite era of R&B music.
It's a great sound right that time.
Yeah. Was introduced to, the 90s are what they are, the 80s are what they are. For me, I was birthed into R&B hearing early 2000s. And so John Legend is one of my favorite singers and songwriters. And he has this song on his very first album, Get Lifted, called She Don't Have to Know. And then there's another song in there called Number One. And they both have this very upbeat kind of, even Used to Love You on that album also has this kind of similar like beat and like upbeat with these live instruments and the feels and this old sample. This sample comes from a song that Eddie Kendricks did back in the day. That everybody knows it from Alicia Keys.
Okay, yeah.
That sample is in the song, and so, but that song originally comes from Eddie Kendricks, a writer that wrote for Eddie Kendricks, and so from Eddie Kendricks from the Temptations. So I heard the sample, and I also heard the beat, and I was like, "Oh, this feels like that John Legend record that I grew up loving." So that was basically my attempt to recreate that song. I was like, "How do I make updated version of this song that I love so much on John Legend's record?" And that's how Sir Do Better came about. It's basically just like a man, telling, his girl or, whoever that he's sorry, he's actually awful. And I'm warning you up front before we date. I'm just letting you know I'm not shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, so before we get into this, when I mess up, I just want you to know that I told you that I wasn't shit. And I also want you to know that you ain't either. But, at the same time, I'm going to own up to my stuff and I just let you own up to yours. So that's what the song is. It's kind of funny in a way, but it's also very true. Cause it's like, how many times do guys actually tell you up front, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, before we get into this, just want to let you know, I ain't shit for real. So let me just precursor before we get into it. Cause it's about to get ugly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing too, though, because it's one thing, making a song. Oh man, I can't stand this. What she did is to me and stuff. It has to really be tragic. You think to yourself, so you know what? Not only I'm owning up as a man to you, I apologize to you, but I got to apologize to myself.
Exactly.
Because I allowed this to happen, and I put myself in that position. And it's always that little circle of what went wrong. You know what I'm saying? It's always the do's and the don'ts. So absolutely.
Yeah,
okay.
Like, point the finger. It's like, well, no, I mean, let me just write a song that owns up to it. I'm just about to own up to all of it, and actually, as we keep going, you'll see this is another like running theme through the music. There's a lot of like me taking ownership for stuff in my songwriting. So like the vulnerability that I'm writing with is like, yo, I messed up. That was on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's something that I don't feel like R&B does right now.
Yeah, it's a process because you think about like you think like, damn, like what I had done this or said this 10 years ago compared to 2015 to 2025. Who knows? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, the next track, always you.
Always you. So always you is the song. That's the single that we push in. That's the one that we really wanted to get out there and get people to. And it's the one that's been kind of had the most kind of organic reception. Also, always you comes about. So I grew up in church. I grew up singing in church. That's kind of how I got my chops. My grandfather's a pastor in Atlanta. I'm from Atlanta originally. How I ended up in Boston, I came here to go to school, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point too. But as far as the music is concerned, that those church roots came out in that song. So I immediately heard like it sounded like Giveon. It was like one of those beats like I want you. Like it reminded me of something Giveon was singing. I was like, dang, okay. I don't sound like Giveon because his tone is completely different, obviously. But I was like, but what kind of song could I make that kind of feels that same kind of like evokes that same energy? And I was like, well, let's just be truthful. You ever had an ex that you just didn't get over, the one that got away? How do you generate that feeling? What does that feel like? And so I went back to a memory of mine when I was in high school, and I saw an ex of mine that we hadn't like actually had conversation in like a couple of years. And we crossed paths while I was at work. I was working at Chick-fil-A taking the trash out, walked and bumped into each other in the mall. And my heart like did that drop thing. Like I ain't seen you in so long. Whoa, like what am I going to say in this moment? Went back to that memory and just started pulling out those feelings when I wrote that song. And it was, I kind of exaggerated the overall story, but the feeling was the same, where it's about, a dude who basically, was too much of a coward to admit that he couldn't love, who he was supposed to love the way he was supposed, he didn't care for the relationship. Yeah. And now he's owning up to it because now he saw, her at the mall, she pregnant with, a new, a baby. And he's like, damn, that should have been mine, but I didn't take my responsibilities for it. So always you is like, I toss and turn because I can't sleep at night. It's, deep inside, I know it's always you. It's really just, it's you. I never got over you. You're the one that got away, X, Y, Z.
Wow. It's crazy, man, because sometimes a situation like it's like, dad, like I want to kick myself in the ass. What the hell is I thinking, man? Like, that's supposed to be her. And then, a lot of times can play the part where your boys could mess it up for you if you play into it and you say you think ahead for the wrong reasons. You got that going on. Then it's like another thing where, people realize too, when you young, you like 16, 17, 18, 21, 22, you're going to say stupid things.
Yes.
And people think that, okay, when you're 20s, you know better. True, but you're still a kid because your teenagers, it's like your 20s are based for your teenagers, and then you don't really become seasoned till you're like 31, 32, 33. Then it start really making more sense, from there and stuff, So,
like these songs they in my 20s, they would not have made as much sense to me or would have been as connected to my experience, if I hadn't lived through these things first. Like, it's like now that I've had some experience, I'm like, oh, I actually know what these things feel like, so I can talk to them for real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely and stuff. Okay, the next one is Apology.
Yep. So Apology is, instead of complaining about the fact that I don't have what I want anymore, this is me just at the least, right? I'm sorry. Now I can actually say it. Cool. I'm sorry. I heard this beat that sounded like it's like I've been damn, I'm sorry. That Ruben Studdard song from the Underdog.
Yeah.
So this beat kind of made me think of that sound, that Eric Dawkins, early underground sound, underdog sound. And I love that sound. That's one of my favorite sounds. That Tyrese, Genuine, Tank sound. That sound, man, it came to me very, very quickly when I heard the beat, and I was like, okay, how do I get everything that I've done? That's how I got to Apology, and that's basically how that song came about.
All right, the next one is Risk It All.
So Risk It All, right? Risk It All is the turning point. So everything is about, all right, we messed up at the beginning. I admitted for 3 songs now that I'm wrong and I messed up this whole I had Kiss was a good night. It was a great night. Now I messed up. Boom. Sir, do better. I acknowledge that I told you I wasn't shit. You know, always you. Now I got to deal with the fact that I can't have you no more. Apology is, dang, I'm actually sorry about this now. I've admitted to myself. Risk It All is, all right, cool. We've gone through this roller coaster of emotions. What do we do now? And what do? If you're scared of love, the idea is that you do it anyway and you risk it all, because if you don't, you're gonna, regret that you never actually gave yourself the shot to fall in love again after you've gone through all of these hoops and and valleys and stuff. So Risk It All is the redemption song. It's the song that it's an acoustic ballad, and it basically is the song that just kind of says, when you're scared to fall back in love, just go ahead and do it anyway, because you'd rather love and fail than not at all.
Absolutely. The next one is Day Ones.
Day Ones is a dedication to everybody who's ever supported me from my days in Atlanta to my days in Boston, because this journey has been really crazy. I mean, like I said, how I stumbled in Boston is kind of odd. Staying in Boston is still odd. Why I'm doing music where I'm at, how this all came about, what I'm doing right now, all of it has just been very, very abnormal. And just not the traditional way that most people get into a career or industry, have previous careers and stuff. So that's just basically me celebrating everybody that, saying like, hey, we here, we got an album out. This is where we at, and appreciate y'all.
Last one is Fairy Tales.
Fairy Tale. So Fairy Tale is that, it's just like the closer of the sound. It's like, I just need one more song that just fits this sound. And I was like, you just haven't written all of the songs have either been about heartbreak or something like that, something real deep. This could just be you just sweet talking somebody, and you just kind of giving them like the love and attention that, everybody wants to feel at some point in their life. And so that's kind of where Fairy Tale comes out. And it does have that very, like, it's a little bit of a modern R&B sound, but it's also a little mix of 2000s R&B too. So that was also Fairy Tale too. It's like, okay, let's do it. I don't really know if I have any like pop influences of how that song came about. I feel like that's probably the song that came at the core. It started with me and my sound, and that's kind of how it came out, as like it's purely my sound.
Well, like once you complete that album and you go through the tracks and everything else, you thought to yourself like, wow, some of these songs are almost similar to like certain eras of my life, going through different phases and everything. It's like people don't realize, when you, creating songs, you got freedom and stuff. You get a chance to get that weird vibe off your back. All those phases, like, okay, I did this, I can move on. But also, too, this album is also a lesson for any young man or any young woman that's coming up. We got rights and wrongs and stuff. And it's crazy how life, it seems like once you get 18, you graduate from high school, you just never know what direction life is going to go at.
Exactly.
While you're trying to think straight ahead.
Right. I mean, honestly, bro, I could not have imagined my life shaping out the way that it has, because I wasn't supposed. I was on track to be a minister. Like I said, I grew up in church. That's the reason I got my doctorate. I went through all of the phases of school. I went and got my undergrad, I did master's, and I did my doctorate, and I spent 20 plus years in school, thinking that I was going to go into a particular direction. And the whole time music was calling me, but I didn't really, I didn't think it was possible as much. I knew that I wanted it, but I didn't think I could be a full-time singer, songwriter, musician, and actually, start, doing shows and actually build a community and a fan base around me. I just thought, it'll happen when you get signed, or if somebody discovers you, or, I didn't think you start putting one foot in front of the other and stuff will just kind of start to snowball. I didn't think that way. So I went and I got all those degrees, and now I don't do nothing, I don't do anything career-wise with it other than like taking some of the theory behind what I wrote about and implementing it in my performance as an artist. But for the most part, like, I'm not teaching no classes. I'm not, I'm not an administrator in a school like I used to be. So it's a little different. But like you said, you never know where life is going to take you, so you just have to be open to the journey.
Yeah, and I think that's where people tend to forget, and a lot of times with some parents, not all, they put too much pressure on the child. And I always say that don't try to throw it to the wolves. You teach them, but let it process in their mind, so that way they can understand. Because people don't realize like 18, 21, 25, and 30 is a brain development. It's like 18 might not get 21, 21 might not get 25, but 25 could understand a little bit what 30 is getting ready to do, and 30 understands it all.
Exactly. At 30, and it's crazy. It wasn't until I turned 30 that stuff started to turn for me, because there was like a certain level of seriousness. I guess I kind of also went through like a quarter life mental crisis where I was like really stuck trying to figure out what is the purpose of my life? What am I doing? Like, this doesn't, where I'm at is not where I want to be. And this doesn't make sense. How do I get over this? And so going through that process and turning the curve at 30, getting to 30, and just realizing you got to take your own life, and hold it in your hands. Nobody's going to do this for you. Nobody's going to come save you. Nobody's going to come give you anything, right? Like, your parents are still your parents, but they also got to do the same thing for themselves. So how are you going to live the life you're trying to live? And own up to it, right? Like, I think that's you're helping me think about this. This project was honestly kind of like a acceptance of ownership too. Like, I'm owning, my own life at this point too. Like, I'm taking my opportunities that God has given me in my hands, and I'm saying, okay, what are you gonna do with this that's in your hands? Because ain't no sense in sitting here complaining about what you don't have. Figure out what you want, take what you got, and go get the rest of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because I think with some people, it doesn't really hit them because time go by so quick, and stuff. And you look back like, wow, man, that was a journey, man, to experience all those different parts of my life, and where I'm at now. And you think to yourself like, wow, time go by fast. In a way, it was meant to be like that for you to get where you at now.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you're 18 yourself, would be like, wow, I'm doing all this. I do this too. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if I can handle that, man. You're like, hold on, dude. You know what I'm saying? So,
I can't tell you how many. So a little bit of a backstory for me. My dad is a celebrity barber and has been for all of my life. And his main client was Keith Sweat, and it's still Keith Sweat, right? Like, so I grew up in like this area between like house and like and knowing he was going over there to cut hair. And it's like, I heard of all the people that was coming to the house. I heard about the records that he produced. I heard about all the stuff. I'm thinking like, this dude is a mega star, and essentially seeing him at 5 years old made me want to be like, yo, I can do that. You can actually have a career as a singer and like perform. So I'm inspired, right? But when I tell you, my dad never went out of his way to make sure I was, heard by this executive or this person, or when somebody was at the house, want to make sure I was playing. He was always trying to protect me, because back then I was so eager and just, and ready. I would have signed anything if somebody had given me something. If this person had come and said, I'm about to give you this much money, come sign with me, I'm going to be. I had no idea or didn't even care that exploitation was a thing, you know what I'm saying? And that I could have ruined myself signing whatever before I got off the ground, if I just being so fast and quick and wanting to in a rush, wanting to be there tomorrow and not really knowing that the journey is, necessary. So now that my life is different, I'm realizing like where I was actually protected and where I have opportunity to continue moving forward in a way that I wouldn't have if I had signed like that back in the day.
wow. Now, growing up, in Georgia, what was your childhood like growing up? When it came to like music, and what was some of the stuff that you want to do as a child, like your dreams and ambitions at back then?
Yeah. So I grew up in a very Christian household. My grandfather is currently a pastor in the city of Atlanta. My biological father passed before I was born. That was his son, but my mother remarried. She wasn't actually married to him, but she married my stepfather at the time. And in our house, the guy who's the barber, in our house, we were also in a Christian home, and they were also ministers as well. So we were listening to a lot of gospel music. It was a lot of Fred Hammond, Marvin Sapp, Jay Moss, Dietrich Haddon, Kirk Franklin, the Clark sisters. And then on my grandfather's side, I was listening to old gospel singers like Mahalia Jackson and Aretha Franklin and like all of these like old singers. Like, so I got double experience. James Cleveland, Clara Ward. I could go down a list of all of them too, because I heard just as much music, And then I got into some of the Al Green on some side, because they were doing gospel cuts. Some of those artists were like starting out, or at some point they would come back to do some gospel music. So I heard Al Green, but I didn't know I was listening to him. I heard Aretha, but I didn't know it was her. And I'm realizing, oh, she's like a huge star on this side, but gospel world, she still got some records too. Some Dionne Warwick. I'm like, what? Like, these are people who are mega stars, but they got these gospel records. So that was part of my development. And then I had cousins. I had like older cousins and like god brothers and like siblings who were around me at the time, that were much older than me per se, and they were introducing me to 106 in Park and what was on MTV Jams, and then I got hooked to VH1 Soul. So and I would be downstairs late night, midnight, from like 1 to 2 a.m. on the couch watching Video Soul all night, catching up on who the new artist was.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I ever heard of Jasmine Sullivan. It was on VH1 Soul, and that song came out. I was like, "Yo, who is that?" Because I love a good singer, right? Like, so I'm doing my research. I would be downstairs when I got bit by that bug for real. I would be downstairs on Wikipedia going through pages and pages of credits of this album, that album, this producer, that writer, this thing, that thing, and really getting to know like who was it that was producing this music. So growing up, rightfully so, I wanted to be a singer, songwriter. I also wanted to produce. I wanted to do movies and direct and just be a full creative in all kinds of ways. But I also still wanted to have some foot in ministry. And I still also, had some type of like honorable, like educational type of aspiration. Like at some point I might have wanted to be Dr. King, right? You know what I'm saying? Like I wear a suit and, be like that at some point. But then I realized I was like, I like that and I respect that, but that's not all of what I want. There's a little bit more to that I want to achieve. And so I'm going to take that with me and, put that in my pocket for now until I need to use it. But I'm going to add that to my total package. But primarily, I think when I say what I've always wanted to be, there's never been a time that I didn't want to be a singer. So I'll say that's definitely that was definitely the goal.
Yeah, because especially back in those days, I don't think this younger generation realized like back then when BT was BT. You see the commercial ads, you see a young brother, working at McDonald's. He's getting his college degree. Yeah. Or you see a sister doing something. You see a black family come together. Back then, it's like, it's one of your parents teaching you about your blackness and everything else. But when you see stuff advertised on TV and that don't motivate a young black kid, I don't know what to say on that one,
Yeah. You had to be, I mean, there was opportunity, and I'm growing up in Atlanta where everything is black. When I got to Boston, it was culture shock because everything I was in, school was all black, work was all black, church was all black, all the events and things. I'm in Decatur, Georgia, so it's like I'm in the black part of the city. Well-to-do black people, but fully black. I could count on one hand how many white people were at my school. So I was surrounded by black, excellence in a beautiful way. And that definitely, I never had that issue, which is crazy because when I got here, I was like, dang, y'all don't really know who you are for real. Like, y'all are powerful. Like
a whole different culture shock.
Man, it's something different. So that was definitely an adjustment.
Yeah. It is crazy though, because we think about, where you from, you think about DC, you think about, Philadelphia, where it's like kind of Muslim like, the New York City's fast paced and multi-cultures and stuff, everywhere else. And you think where it's like, wow, no matter how much this plays to the TV, these are the people who they are, you know what I'm saying? Exactly. And it's sad that certain states, it's like restricted in a way, it's based off society environment, man. That's crazy. By the time you got to high school, what direction you wanted to go in by that time before you became a singer?
Man, so I was just set on going to college. I was like, I just know I need to go to college because I don't really have a focus of where to go. I'm kind of like all over the place because in my heart, I just want to be a singer. but I don't have no real way of confirming. Like I would do talent shows. I never forget Jagged Edge was a judge one time, and my mom was just, God bless her now, because I understand what she was doing, but at the time there was some things I just did not like that she would do. Like I got in trouble one time for not, I had like a C on my report card or something, and there was a talent show when the report cards came out that next week, and she pulled me from the talent show, and I was pissed because I knew I was gonna rock that talent show, but I was even more pissed because Jagged Edge was the judge, and I was like, "Mom, you can't pull me out the talent show. Jagged Edge is judging this show." So I'm so hurt. But just what's crazy is she pulled me out the talent show, but there was another opportunity for me to sing that night at a church gig, and she let me go sing at church. And I was just like, man, but she was like, nah, if you ain't gonna do your grades and whatever, you're not going to sing. So she disciplined me in a very powerful way. But at that time, like I said, I was just trying to figure out where I was going to go next. I didn't really know where I would ultimately end up charting out a path. So I was down for the military. I was trying to go to college. I was applying to everything. I was doing, different jobs. I wanted to go to Berklee College of Music. I was like, well, that could be a next step. I was like, maybe I'll move to California. I was just all over the place trying to figure it out. I was in a hip hop group at the time. I was like, well, maybe this will take off. I don't know what we're going to do. So at that time, I didn't really, by high school. And then by high school, I was just happy to know I was going to college when I graduated. So, because that was like, I had no other options. Like I didn't. And my story is crazy. I had my doctorate, but my undergrad experience, I didn't get accepted to no school but Morehouse College. That was the only school that accepted. Right. I applied to like 10 different schools, and all of them said no. And I think that was kind of a divine way that God kind of put me in line. But yeah, I wasn't like the greatest student. I was an okay student, but they let me in, and so I was just happy. I was like, whoo, well, I know what I'm doing there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely and stuff. It's crazy too, because like when you want to, go in a different direction, especially there'll be certain schools like, man, this should fit for me, what I'm saying? I know what I want, and hopefully it can come through and stuff. And I can only imagine, say like you deal with student loans and if you go to school part-time or full-time and stuff, and I could just imagine the process of it, like you balancing college life, and also, you got like a part-time job, say like Pizza Hut or something like that, and you hoping that, if you do file taxes that, like your W-2s don't get garter sheeted, down the road. And here we are, they're supposed to have this forgiveness program, and that's been rejected more than a person waiting on like a pending check still ain't came through yet.
When I tell you, I worked, like I had maybe 3 jobs in college. I had 3 jobs in grad school. I had 3 jobs. I'm talking about like just always in some kind of way, somebody paying me for something. And I would work too. I work in the office. I work at the cash register. I do the front line. I'll, just whatever I could do to make sure. But then when I got into college, I started actually acting into the ministry piece. And so I started as a youth pastor for my grandfather for several years while I was in college up until I graduated, which is how I got to Harvard. I ended up coming here to do a Master Divinity. And that was kind of like my journey. I was studying religion in undergrad, came up here to study religion, and then I stayed. I just never went back because I ended up as a grad student at Harvard. I found a job working in the Dean of Students office for the college. And then that turned into an actual higher ed career, which is what I did for the last 10 years or so, until recently, literally like within the last year, pivoting to now doing more full-time creative art. So it's been a crazy, crazy path.
Man, I couldn't even imagine, man, where like your Mondays feel like a Thursday, your Wednesdays feel like Fridays, your Tuesdays feel like a Sunday and stuff.
And it's crazy because I'm like, I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I feel more busy not working than I did when I had a full-time job and I had to be here at 8:30 and, there until 5 and then go to the studio and then go, that structure was a little different. But now it's like, I feel like I'm all over. Like I got so much happening and thanks be to God for it. But it's like, woo, I asked for this. But I ain't know it was about to be, like just kind of going crazy. So I'm just grateful for it, and I'm grateful. And I'm like, you know what? All right, in this season of your life, what you need to do is just fully embrace where you are, but also learn all of the lessons that you can. Be a
Right.
student. Be a student, because you realize you don't know anything at this point. Like, you really don't know. You just kind of go in with what you think and hoping that it works, but you don't really know for real what it takes to be on the level you want to be. Like, I want to be, number one in the
Yeah.
world. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanna have the crazy stages. I want to be, on this tour, that tour. I want to be able to make an appearance. I really want that life. So I'm like, well, I don't know what it takes to produce on that level, but I'm willing to learn. And I'm like, all
Right.
right, what does it take to get there? Let's put it in action and let's get there. Let's get to it.
I can only imagine, where like you discipline your mind to stay
Yeah.
focused. I think with some young man, they probably would have break down depending on how to handle it, even women as well. It's like you're passionate about this, but you're obligated to do other things just to stay afloat, just to be where you at. And I think, some people don't realize, God give these level of doors. It's like you walk in the middle of the hallway and you got all these options, all these doors, and God tested us just to see if we can hang it through it. Once you at that final door, like a video game, and you good.
Right. Right. So once and sometimes we go through doors that we weren't supposed to really, walk through, but you walk back out the door and realize, okay, that went for me. It's like, oh, cool. Let me keep walking. At least, the hallway is still there for you until you get where you're supposed to go.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. Now moving forward from there, so fast forward up. Now you have worked, say read and collaborated with Grammy-winning producers like, far working with people with like Beyonce, H.E.R, Alicia Keys, Chris Brown, Janelle Monae, Eric Bellinger, Ledisi, Brandy, Jay-Z, and Teyana Taylor. So we're gonna start off with Beyonce. So
yeah.
how did that situation came about?
So my church growing up, it's so crazy that I'm telling this story now, because literally I was just talking to she's a friend of mine who actually wrote the song. But growing up, my bass player at the church was her producer. He's the guy who produced Deja Vu. So he did at the beginning, if you hear her say bass, and that's him. And growing up, I just knew, it was like, yo, that's John. Like, that's the guy. That's the guy. So being an eager kid growing up, every Sunday, if I saw him at church, I'm walking up to him like, yo, what you working on? Let me hear some. I'm trying to, and he would do stuff like, he played me Ledisi's album before it came out when he was working on that. He played me a record that he did for Brandy one time, and Jessie J when they were working on that. Played me some stuff when he was writing with people like Clyde Kelly and like all these other like really dope writers. And I was just like a sponge. I was soaking everything I possibly could in. And eventually we ended up writing together at a point. And then there was also like some more moments where like I would beg him to send me a beat and I would go like right on it or whatever. And like he would send back, I would send it to him and like, oh, let's shop this, let's figure out, So we have some stuff that we've collaborated on together. Nothing that's ever like gone off to do anything and like go, on anybody, but definitely have been able to kind of sit in with him and do some work. I've done some background vocals for him too, on some other projects, and I've been in the studio and done that too. So that was good. And he's done work with most of the people that were listed on there. And then there's another producer who executive produced H.E.R's first two albums. And he and I recently connected, and he actually was a songwriting coach for me for a little bit, which was amazing. He really helped me kind of like hone in on a lot of my songwriting so I could be a better writer, and just kind of a better artist in general. And I always, I'm grateful and appreciative to him for that too. And he did a lot of he did some work with Teyana Taylor. Like I said, he did both of H.E.R's projects. Kehlani, he first helped her, Kate Michelle. Like, so he's, these guys are very instrumental and very influential in what they do. And I give them honor. And I'm grateful to have met them and been able to kind of like work with them.
Yeah. Especially, for you being an artist and a writer and stuff, did somebody school you in about, when it comes to like song credits, publishing and things like that. I could imagine where it's like you have good situations as approached to you. Of course, you got a lot of macaroni situations and stuff. So, how did you learn how, when it comes to like having credits and have your name mentioned, when it comes to receiving royalties to certain percentages and stuff like that?
Yeah, so it has the process has been very like learn as you go, and I feel like that has been the case for everybody. It's not until you kind of like move into a bigger machine that you get like a crash course, like Crash Course for Dummies at one time. For me, I haven't had that experience, so it's still very much so learn on the go for me. But I've heard of so many murky situations too, where depending on who's in a certain room, you may or may not get credit, or if you write a song and like the person you might be signed to or that you're working with wants full credit and don't want to give you nothing, right? Like they may actually ask you to take your name off of a song you made, and so you just have to be cognizant of the ways in which, like, it's not a personal situation. The music business is business, and
Yeah.
sometimes, depending on how you want to trade off, or what you are willing to give and what you're not willing to give, you have to make certain decisions based on what you think will work well for you. So luckily that hasn't the bad side of that has not happened to me. I have definitely I've placed on a couple of things that are like indie artists or whatever, here and there. Folks are like saying my music, but nothing to the extent of like I got 2 points on a record where I should have had 50 points, and therefore I got I get 5 cents a stream. So nothing like that has happened to me, and I'm praying that it never will. But it's like, as we said, we learn and we go. So if it does ever happen, and I have to fight for my rights, then God be with us. But yeah, like I said, hopefully that never happens.
It just clicked on my mind, as we was talking, with Alicia Keys, of course, her sound has morphed, from like neo soul, contemporary, choir storm, like modern pop, even like going back to neo soul, but it's like what they call it, like alternative R&B, So with her, what was kind of like the stuff that they wanted to add you in, to working with her?
Well, so I never actually got to work with her, which was, I mean, that was the hope for sure. But I was writing stuff that sounded a lot like what she had out. But they were, by the time I met Swag, he had actually already wrapped up working with her. He was just kind of on to looking for writers who might have like a edgier thing. And so like some of the conversations, like, were like, oh well, this might sound good on a Lucky Day or Kiana Lede or something like that. Like those artists were kind of coming up. I think Lucky Day had just released like his first project, and it sounded really, really, like you said, like alternative R&B. And so like I think folks were looking for more of that sound. Now I will say I think somebody who has taken that sound and is probably now the blueprint of the newest sound in R&B is Leon Thomas. And
Oh yeah.
I think he's taken it. He's taken that R&B alternative feel, and he's kind of pushed it and brought back a little bit of like a little funk to it. He got a little bit more soul in there too, and that sound is getting a little bit more robust now. And so I think he'll kind of carry the torch for a little bit of like the sound of R&B for maybe the next couple of years. And it'll consistently grow. And then of course you got a bunch of like indie artists too. But to answer your question, I didn't get to necessarily work with her, but I writing with her producer. He was in that. He's actually, believe it or not, now that I'm thinking about it, he was a pioneer in the trap soul sound.
Right.
So what Bryson Tiller was kind of like popping off with, he was actually kind of on that wave a little early. And I feel like a little bit of the industry was like there too. Folks were just kind of trying to figure out how it was going to come out. Bryson kind of made it pop, but folks were kind of getting around to this like 808s on some acoustic guitar and just kind of filling it out and seeing how that stuff goes real Daniel Caesar, those grooves and stuff like that with that kind of alternative plush light sound with those background vocals and those echoes and the reverb all on the mix. That sound kind of came about, and that's what I was writing with.
Yeah, because I remember when Trap Soul was already, on the merge like 10 years ago. And big shouts to Bryson Tiller, from here, Louisville, Kentucky, 502. But when I
Right,
turned him,
right.
yeah, yeah, because matter of fact, he grew up not too far from where I live up the street and stuff. And
Wow. Wow.
yeah, man. So fast forward, because I remember when alternative R&B, man, was really making its name, man, like it was 2021, 2022. I started seeing
Mhm.
Emmanuel, John Vinyl, and everybody else. I'm like, wow, man, it's really just emerged the way it is now. With Leon Thomas, man, it's like a whole different level, man. It's crazy how that
Yeah,
goes. It's
yeah, yeah.
everything.
Very, very elevated sound, high production quality, and then also his post
Yeah,
credits, right? Like you got SZA, he's done, Ariana Grande, so he's been building
yeah,
this sound for a little bit, which is fantastic. I think it's amazing.
it is and stuff. Uh, okay, with Janelle Monae. So with her direction, where she was going in, we got the phone call to do some stuff, for like our projects.
What? So my actual producer, the guy who produced my last couple projects, Lako, he got on one of the songs with her. But John, the guy who I said was the bassist at church, he was the producer for that Dirty Computer project, which was fantastic. That was also like, wow, I can't believe you got Janelle Monae, like, oh, please, 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 like it's like, oh yeah, yo, I'm gonna get on it. Because it's Janelle Monae, and at this time she's popping. She got the whole gang going. Wonderland Records, everybody's Jadena and Roman
Yeah,
Guy. I never forget. I was leading praise and worship one time at church. John was there. He was on bass, and I was just a regular another Sunday, whatever. And this guy comes up to me after service, and he's like, "Yo," he was like, "Bro, you got to keep going. You're so dope, man. You're just genuine. I rock with your sound. It's incredible. Please don't stop." And I'm just like, "Man, thank you, bro. This is, I really, really appreciate you." And then come to find out, it's Roman Guy and Arthur, who's one of the producers on that project, but he's in one of their records. But he was working with John, getting his album together. Had no idea this dude was gonna come out of the blue and come, give me my props. I'm like, dude, you already, you where I'm trying to get, and to give me props. So I just remember like
yeah,
little moments like that have happened. That happened to me. I was most recently, this has happened to me a couple times. There's two things that have happened to me recently. Um, that are similar to that, where I've gotten head nods from some like really, really notable people. I was performing in Connecticut at a spot called Grace by Nia at the Foxwoods Resort, and during my whole set I had no idea, but Jeffrey Osborne,
right,
the legend, is sitting in the back because he had a show at the
wow,
big arena down at the actual casino. We were in one of the lounges. He came and he sat in and just was eating or whatever, chilling with his family. Stayed the whole night. He was there when I got there and there when I left. And when I realized it was him, they were like, "Yo, Jeffrey Osborne." I was like, "Yo, you're kidding me." So I went over and I shook his hand, and he gave me the biggest props. He was like, "Yo, your sound is so dope." He was like, "Good set. That falsetto is." He really, really, hyped me up, and I was like, "Yo, this is
yeah,
Jeffrey Osborne telling me that he rocks with my song." And I'm singing old songs too. And then lastly, whenever I sing at this lounge in Boston, there's a one in Connecticut and one in Boston. The one in Boston, they never let me come there and not sing Half Crazy by Music Soul Child. It's one of my favorite songs, but they always want me to sing that song whenever I'm there. So this last time, I wasn't even gonna go to the spot. I was like, I'm just gonna pull up just because we finished another gig. I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna just go. I went. They was like, "Oh, Aric B's in the house. He in the house. Okay, so you know what that means. You know what we want to hear. We want to hear that Half Crazy." So of course, crazy Matt got up and I was like, "All right, I'm gonna sing Half Crazy." My videographer happened to be there that night. He filmed me doing Half Crazy, and then he posted it and tagged Music Soul Child. And of
wow,
all of the times I ever DM Music Soul Child, sent him my story, sent him music, just trying to get in contact with him, this was the one time he responded, number one, and was like, "Yo, he killed that shit. That's crazy." And then number
wow,
two, he reposted it and put hashtag Half Crazy on the story and was like, I was like, because Music Soul Child is one of my big three. Like this Music Soul Child, Tank, and John
yeah,
Legend. Those three are the sum of my influences. And he, of all people, I'm like, yo, music soul
Yeah.
child, bro. Like that's crazy. So that's happened a couple times.
Yeah, I tell you though, I mean, yeah, big shouts to him, but his work, I mean, as far as like the early 2000s, oh my God, man, he was from year 2000 through like 2008, 9. I mean, he was killing it the first 9 years, man. I mean, he helped every brother summer, man. Good.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
real truth and stuff.
yeah,
Uh,
man.
to go from, doing background work for R&B, DO, type of artists, to do gospel. I can only imagine, especially that you growing up in that lane and stuff, you thought to yourself, like, okay, I know my family, they happy with what I do. I know they even shock more because, here it is, backer vocal stuff for Jeffrey Golden, Kurt Franklin, Canton Jones, Jessica Reedy. So working with those, man, I mean, Stellar Awards, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
NAACP Grammys and stuff. So what was it like working with, those bunch?
Man, the gospel industry is a whole, it's a whole community and a whole. I mean, I also realized working with a lot of those guys, and traveling with them, and being on different folks are they're just people. They're human, and knowing them on personal levels made me realize that it's like, well, you're just like them. There is no difference. So there is no need to treat anybody any differently. Like you can just embrace a relationship the way that it comes organically and kind of move on from that. But man, they were just cool people, man. I remember we used to travel with Canton, and I used to look up to, because that was Canton was like the first artist that I started singing with. And he took me under his wing, and we traveled around. um I remember we performed at the Hawks game one time. We performed in Maryland one time, Brandywine, Maryland. I mean, just kind of, he just took us around. We went to Alabama one time, and I never forget this right here. Really, those moments were so pivotal because we were at this huge. I think it was like the Birmingham Center. It's like the auditorium in Birmingham that everybody knows about. We're in Birmingham at this huge concert type event, and he's on the stage. We're in the car with him, me and Charles from Charles and Taylor. We're in the car with him. He's like, all right. He was like, okay. He was like, so y'all ride with me. He was like, okay, cool. He was like, so I'm gonna call y'all up. He was like, y'all just come out. He was like, y'all just come out when I call y'all up. We backstage with him, mind you. He just, and we're singers. Charles is a crazy singer. He's like leading worship now at Change Church. Crazy singer. I always looked at him. He was like a big brother to me. He's out there. Charles is there. I'm standing next to him. I'm the youngest out of the bunch, and I'm thinking to myself, I was like, I don't have on the right shirt. I'm like saying to myself, like, I don't want to go out there on stage. I don't look good. Like I look kind of crazy. But I didn't realize like the magnitude of what those moments are. And just the fact that you on stage and you out there with him like that, that moment could have transformed me in ways that I don't even know, honestly, if I had just gotten over the smallest little fear that I had of going out stage. So I didn't go. I was backstage. He was waiting on us to go. Charles was there. Charles was like, "You not going?" I was like, "No, I'm gonna stay back." He was like, "All right, I'm going." He walked out there, got busy, and just and it was nothing like, it wasn't like a viral moment or anything. But I know now what my development could have, standing in front of that many people at that moment, at that early stage of my process, would have done incredible wonders for me, because I would have had to overcome my fear of thousands of people staring at me at one time.
Oh, wow.
It's just like little moments like that happened that were just purely developmental. And eventually we ended up like, I was just saying to myself, I have now sang for 30,000 people at one point, which is like still mind blowing to me. I'm like, yo, 30,000 people is a lot of people. Can you imagine doing that every night on tour? Like that's crazy. So I'm like, okay, I've gotten over my fear of stepping in front of that many people. How do we move from this point? So it's like little moments like that happen all the time.
Wow. I couldn't even imagine, even though I'm not a singer or like that, but I can only imagine perform in front of a 30,000 crowd like that. You know, to go from one genre to another genre, that's like a different type of high right there. You know, it's like
Yeah.
you take it all in that moment. And it's
Yeah.
one thing, you know, you celebrate with people back in mind, like, I need to be by myself. I can just soak it all in, get my thoughts together. You know, so I think God trying to lead me somewhere even greater, you know, than what it is and stuff. Man, I can only imagine that stuff, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
man.
and then let me see. Yeah, so not too long ago, you did a background vocals for various projects called the Academy Award nominated song called "Stand Up for Movie Harriet." So how
Yeah.
did that came about?
So my great friend Joshua Campbell, never forget this. So Joshua Campbell was a student at Harvard. I was a master's student. He was an undergrad. We were friends though because we both could sing. And you know, singers, when you just find each other and you got that same background, and you both come from
Yeah,
church, got that kindred spirit, we locked in immediately. And he had a producer friend who was also an undergraduate student here. We were all at some point we all had our individual relationships as far as like connections with each other, but somehow you know how you have mutual friends who
yeah,
know each other, but y'all don't know each other yet in the same space. So it was like we finally came together as like a group, and we were like, oh, now you know him. We just went there. Joshua Campbell is a student at Union in New York at this point, and somehow he got the call from Universal Pictures to write. He was commissioned to write a song for the Harriet movie. And we all just like, well, yeah, they called me or whatever to write this song. He was like, I don't know if they'll pick me to do it, but I'm just gonna write this song and we're just gonna do it. We're literally sitting in Gabe's living room. I'm eating Popeye's chicken because I just got my hair done from the
but
shop. And he was like, where you at? I need to pull up real quick. So I pulled up to this house. He's sitting there writing in a notepad. He's writing the words. I saw him do it, writing the words in a notepad. We are demoing on a little microphone setup, vocal on a little small laptop computer. Gabe produced the track. Joshua is doing the leads. He was like, I need you to help me chart out some background vocals. So I started helping him chart out these layering background vocals. What happened was I helped him chart out the background vocals for the songwriting session of the demo. So we were able to get the record done, and I was there to help produce the demo. But when the demo got to Cynthia Erivo, who is the main character, and you know she's major now.
yeah,
By the time it got to her and the Hamilton guys, because the Hamilton producers reproduced it, they got the demo, they reproduced the song, and then they re-recorded the song. So they took all of ours off and added theirs on. But my background were in the demo that went to Cynthia to get the song produced. But it was when I say it was a crazy experience to literally watch that song go from a pen and paper to Grammy Award nomination, Oscar Award nomination, Golden Globe Award nomination, Emmy Award. That song went everywhere, and I was just like, there is no way in the world that I saw this man write in his notebook the words to this song, and it literally went to the world. Like I was like, I'm still blown away by it. Like that's incredible to me. But I was in the room.
yeah.
I was right there.
Yeah, that's a strong hit and stuff. Because I remember when I think I was in a car with my girl's brother, and he's a minister, and I remember he mentioned, he said, "Man, have you heard this song right here?" Then put it through like the YouTube music, and man, I tell you, man, you know, I mean, that's dude, like that's a powerful record. Then
Oh,
for it to be nominated, yeah, it deserves all kinds of accolades, and I hope it'd be like in a Grammy Hall of Fame or something.
yeah. It is and it's funny. It's a Black History song now. Every year it comes back up, and you know choirs all over the world have done it. They've translated it numerous times. But to be in the room when he tried, I've been running like him when he started
Yeah,
that song like that, I said Joshua Campbell. It's like I wanted to knock him out because I'm like I've gotten excited about this crazy, and I'm like, man, but you're my friend and you are producing this incredible work, and I'm just happy to be here and help you do it. Like I was so happy to just even that he would even ask me to come and help him chart out the rest of the song to kind of help produce what we sent off. But amazing work.
well, before we wrap it up, if you could describe your life and your career in a couple of words, what would you call it?
Mm, excellent question. Whew. A few words. My life in a few words. I would say led by the grace of God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man. Wow, yeah, that's
By the grace of God.
wow. It's amazing though, for you to, be destined, from a child to a young adult, now to a grown man, to have different parts, elements of your life. I always say that, God always have a level of doors for us for a reason, have a path, and a lot of things happen, besides the personal part of you, like, wow, you ask yourself, like, why God's, have me in this, but he's having you in this for a reason. That's what he be passionate about it, also spread the message, for you to be blessed to work with so many people. I mean, a lot of women wish they could have worked with or even be in the same room with them. They'd be like, hey, I made it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's right.
Yeah, and I think that I believe that more journeys gonna be coming and stuff, and that's the honest God truth. Before we get up out of here, what's next for you and for like the rest of like the last 5-6 months in 2025?
Yeah. So my biggest show, headlining at the City Winery in Boston on
All right.
Friday, July 11th. My first time headlining there, which would be amazing. I'm on tour with Elon Trotman, who's a very famous saxophonist. He's actually gone #1 on billboards, and I know Tony Terry's next. He's worked with Tony Terry. Like it's like a whole thing. Traveling.
Okay.
Like he teaches at Berkeley. He's great, phenomenal musician. Happy to be on tour with him this summer. I got some shows on Martha's Vineyard a couple times this summer. We'll be doing weddings and corporate events throughout the rest of the year. And I also got some new music coming out.
That's what's up, though. Yeah, I want to give big shouts to Miss V and Carla for negotiating this interview and stuff to get this set up. I appreciate you, Queens, and stuff. And with that being said, for those that get a chance to watch the interview, you watch the playback right here on the R&B Talk Show. And thank you, my brother, man, for coming on here. Definitely come back on here again, man, for like the next project or anything you got going on and stuff.
Oh, yes, sir, man. Thank you so much. It's your boy, Aric B. Thank y'all so much. Follow me on all platforms, and we'll see y'all soon.
We out of here.